Hello everyone, welcome to Honors Algebra 1. Before we get started on any notes, I just wanted to talk about some things that you are definitely going to want to make sure you have in order to stay organized with all of your notes and different assignments. So the first thing you will definitely need is you will need a spiral notebook, and you just want to label it notes. And then you will need one other spiral notebook, and you can label it homework just on the front of the notebook, just to stay organized with what are your notes and what are your homework assignments. And it will really help you stay organized and know where everything's at when you need it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is in your notebook titled Notes, every day you do notes, you're going to want to organize them like this. The title of the lesson. So the first lesson we will be doing will be solving multi-step equations. Make sure to write that up top. And then you're also going to want to date it with what date you are completing the notes. Okay, so if you guys could go and grab your notebook, the one titled Notes, and if you could pause this video and copy down those first 5 steps right there. Okay, now that you're done copying down those steps, let's go through what those mean. So whenever you're solving a multi-step equation, your goal is to get the variable by itself, isolate the variable. So for example, if the problem is 2x plus 7 equals 15, my goal is to get the x by itself and get everything to the other side. So how do you do that? The first thing you look for is, do you have to distribute at all? The next thing you look for is to clear out fractions, which may be a new step for some of you guys, but it makes the problem a lot easier, especially with some of the longer, harder problems. The third thing you look for is combining like terms on the same side of the equation, and you'll see in some of our later examples today how to do that. And then you want to add or subtract or multiply or divide to get the variable by itself. And you will see all of those used today. Okay, so our first example here is 2x plus 7 equals 15. So I'm sure most of you remember seeing these type of problems throughout middle school, and this one's pretty easy. Your goal is to get this x by itself. How you get the x by itself is you first have to get rid of this plus 7. So how do you get rid of plus 7? You subtract 7, and whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side of the equation. So I'm left with 2x on the left side. 15 minus 7 is 8. And now this is a pretty easy problem. How do we get rid of 2 times x? How do you undo multiplication? You divide. So 8 divided by 2 would be 4 here. So 4 is our answer. Why is 4 our answer? Because if I plug in 4 for x here, it should make this equation true, which it does. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 7 is 15. 15 does equal 15. It's a true statement. That's how I know it's the solution. Okay, moving on to the second problem. And remember, you can pause this video anytime if you need more time on the problems. The next problem is 1/2 x minus 5 equals 10. So if you look at our steps here up top, the first thing we're looking for is to distribute. Well, you're definitely not going to distribute here. There's just nothing to distribute. It says clear fractions as step 2. Well, I do see a fraction. I see 1/2 here. So I need to think about, well, how can I clear out this fraction? Meaning, how could I get rid of a denominator of 2? Let's think about what a denominator of 2 actually means. It means we're dividing by 2. How do you undo division? You multiply. So what we're actually going to do here is we're going to multiply everything through by 2. And by everything, I mean everything on both sides of the equation is getting multiplied by 2. So you have to make sure you do it to every part. So 2 times 1/2 is just 1x. 2 times negative 5 would be negative 10. And 2 times 10 would be 20. So we're clearing out the fraction by multiplying by whatever that denominator is. And now it's a one-step equation. How do you get rid of minus 10? You add 10 to both sides. So we know x is 30. Okay, moving on to our next problem here. Negative 14 plus 2/3 x equals negative 61. So what I want you guys to do here is answer the question, what would be the first step in getting x by itself here? What is the first step of this problem? Okay, so the first step is to clear out the fractions. And how you do that is we have to get rid of divided by 3. So yes, we're going to multiply through everything by 3, all 3 parts. So the first part, 3 times negative 14 would be negative 42. 3 times 2/3, the 3's cancel, so we're just left with 2x. And 3 times negative 61 would be negative 183. Okay, our next step here, we need to get rid of the negative 42 to the other side. How do you get rid of a negative 42? You add 42. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So negative 183 plus 42 would be negative 141. And we're going to divide both sides by 2 to get rid of the times 2. And if I do negative 141 divided by 2 in my calculator, you can see that it's not divisible by 2. You're not getting a whole number. So if you're not getting a whole number here, we are just going to leave it as an improper fraction. Also, just make sure it's reduced. There is no way we could reduce this any further, so we just have negative 141 over 2. So yes, you'll get a lot of fractions in these problems, and that's okay. Okay, so number 4, moving on here. Looks a little bit different. So another way to think about this, and you don't need to write this down, would be this. This is the exact same thing as this, because I'm dividing both parts here by 4. So if I had this problem, many of you would probably say, well, that looks similar to the other problems, but now we have 2 fractions. That's okay. We still need to get rid of divided by 4. So how do you get rid of divided by 4? You multiply by 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply everything through here by 4. So 4 times 12 would be 48. And now if I have this 4 and I'm dividing by 4, these are just canceling out here. So I'm just left with 2 minus 3x. And now we just have a 2-step equation. How do you get rid of adding 2? You subtract 2 from both sides. And then how do we get rid of multiplying by negative 3? You divide by negative 3 on both sides. So your answer is 46 over negative 3. Or you could have put negative 46 over 3. Typically, when you have a negative fraction, you'll see the negative sign with the numerator, not the denominator, but either one is correct. Okay, moving on here. Number 5, very similar. So what I want you guys to do is answer the question, what would be the first step here? Okay, so the first step would be to simplify this part. When you're subtracting a negative, what are you really doing? You're actually adding, because a negative times a negative is just positive. If you said multiply both sides by 8, you would also been correct, because you could have done that first too and then took care of the subtracting a negative second. So I'm going to multiply everything through by 8 to get rid of that fraction. So you'll notice the 8 and the 8 here cancel. So we're just left with 5 plus 2x, but make sure you don't forget to multiply this part by 8. 32. So then subtract 5 from both sides and divide by 2. So your answer is just 27 over 2. Okay, so 2 more problems. So number 6 is 2x minus 9x plus 17 equals negative 4. So what I want you guys to do is answer the question, what would be the first step here? And feel free to use your steps above. Okay, so the first step here would actually be to combine like terms. There's no distributing and there's no clearing any fractions. So like terms mean that you have the same variable, so they both have x's, and you have the same exponent attached to that variable. The invisible exponent is 1. So those are like terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2x minus 9x first. 2x minus 9x is negative 7x. And you'll also notice they are on the same side of the equation. You have to make sure if you're going to combine like terms that they're on the same side of the equation. Okay, next step, just like the other ones, 2-step equation, subtract 17 from both sides. Negative 4 minus 17 is negative 21. And divide by negative 7. So your answer here is x equals 3. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. So positive 3 is your answer. Okay, and then the last problem for today's lesson is 2 over 5x minus 1 over 5x plus 9 equals 1. So, again, we do not have any distributive property in this problem, but we do have some fractions. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of those by clearing out all fractions. Well, we see that the fractions denominators are 5. How do you get rid of divided by 5? You multiply everything through on both sides by 5. So 5 times 2/5, the 5's cancel, so we're just left with 2x. 5 times negative 1/5, we're just left with negative 1x. 5 times 9 is 45. And 5 times 1 is 5. Now our problem looks just like the last one. We have to make sure we combine our like terms here. 2x minus 1x is just 1x. And how do you get rid of adding 45? Subtract 45. So our final answer here is negative 40. Okay, that is it for the first lesson here. As always, if you have any questions, make sure to email your teacher or comment on the Google Classroom post. Have a great